Eva Gutsche from STEM Consulting and Marketing here with us. Eva is the founder of STEM Consulting and Marketing and brings a wide range of experience and expertise to the organization. Her solid background in management and sales allows for a practical, hands-on approach to be applied to various programs. Eva has been facilitating for over 10 years, working to improve effectiveness with leadership teams, sales departments, and frontline customer experience. Eva has an MBA from Simon Fraser University, a diploma in Hospitality Administration and Services from the Centennial College, and a program completion from Cornell University in Leadership and Revenue Management. Today, Eva will empower you as tourism operators to create and manage a successful sales action plan for your business or organization. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Eva. Welcome, Eva.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Greg, and hello to everybody. I'm delighted to see some familiar names in the participant list and meet some new operators in the province. So thank you so much for taking some time this morning, and we'll jump right into the program. Any time you have a question, feel free to jump in. If you're thinking something, there's a good chance others have the same question. So let's get started. So the plan today is developing a sales action plan. So Craig gave a little bit of insight. I have had the pleasure of working extensively in Newfoundland and Labrador, so that's where I've met several of you, and working across the country. It doesn't seem to even matter which part of the country I'm in, it's really how effectively you connect with others. So today we're going to talk about how to connect with others to really develop an effective plan. When I was talking to Craig after the last webinar, the revenue management one a few weeks ago, I said it's so interesting doing a webinar in relation to actually being in the classroom. So he gave a really fantastic analogy. He said it's a little bit like being on a squash court, but only one of you has a racket. So if you would like to engage with me and swing that racket around, please do. So let's jump in a little bit further here. So as Craig mentioned, I'm actually here in Sault Ste. Marie. I was attending the Northern Ontario Tourism Summit. And I'd like you to know that the world is watching Newfoundland and Labrador. So when other operators across the country are looking for ways to enhance their product, connect with the customer more effectively, grow their business, Newfoundland is top of mind. So there was a presenter here from Newfoundland and Labrador, and she was speaking of some of the great product you've got in the province. And as I was looking at sales action planning, had that certainly top of mind, she gave a little talk on Fogo Island. And the reference she gave was to the Great Fogo Island Sprint Race. And the words that she used to describe the race, you go from here to there and then back again. And as I listened to that to that name, it really, in my mind, summarized what sales action planning is all about. So when we start taking a look at this, we want to start from here. So from here is what's your starting point now? Are you new in business? Is a clean slate and you're deciding where to go? Have you been there for a while? And maybe looking at growing the business, changing your customer mix, a couple of other things might be in your mind as far as where am I now and where could I go? So as we go from here, we're going to there. So the there ends up being the goal or the destination. And part of our goal or destination, we have to figure out which route or direction we're going to go. So that's really when we start talking about the sales action planning, that's the route and the direction. We need a little information first in order to plot that route and direction. But once we have a sense of where we are, a sense of where our goal is, plotting that route becomes a lot easier. And then we have to get back again. So in the analogy for sales action planning, the back again is really going back to where you started. So reviewing. So at the end of the year, sitting down and saying, okay, so this is where I was headed. This is where I ended up. Let's take a look at where there was some growth. Maybe some things remained flat. Maybe some of the things didn't actually take off as well as I'd hoped. So this ends up becoming the review, which then guides your plan for the following year. So in a nutshell, it's from here to there and then back again. So from here, look at where you are now. So we want to get a sense of what current influences exist on your business. You may or may not have any control over these, but they are impacting your business regardless. So we're going to take a look at a few of those. We want to take a look at your current revenue. So where are you at? Is that where you want to be? I know when I'm speaking with some operators, growth strategy may not be what they're looking for. It might be more of a lifestyle choice, so it's kind of, I'm happy with this level that I'd like to maintain, but getting a really clear understanding of where you are and where you want to go. And revenue is one thing, but what about profitability? How much are you spending in order to get that revenue? And then really defining who your customers are. So what do they look like? How old are they? Where do they come from? Why did they come? How did they get to your door to start with? So we're going to look at some demographics. We're going to take a look at their geographic origin. So where did they hail from? The booking channels. So did they come to you direct via email or your website? Did they come through a tour operator? Did they come through another way? Maybe one of the online booking, the booking channels like Expedia, something like that. And then take a look at what you're doing now. So you've got some existing sales and marketing initiatives. Some of them you might repeat out year after year, maybe going back and taking a look and saying, is this really working? Or what am I missing? Maybe that's the bigger question. So from there, what we're taking a look at is where are your goals? So are you looking at new customer types? Are you trying to diversify your market? So it could be, working with outfitters, for example. Seeing a lot of that throughout the north, across Canada, with impact on their business from tags to environmental legislation and other issues. They're now having to diversify the market and going after some family business, for example. So what's happening for you as far as your customer? And taking advantage of trends. So trends are around constantly out there, the trend hunters around the world, and seeing very cool things. Certainly the big hot button with trends or hot topic is technology, and recognizing increasing and declining markets before they're gone. So is there a trend in here that I'm seeing? There seems to be a big rise in a certain industry. Great. Am I being able to take advantage of that? Want to take a look, of course, at revenue, and your overall revenue and profitability as we mentioned. And profitability, is it maybe about decreasing costs, or is there other things that you can do for profitability, maybe upselling or enhancing your product? And then when we're on the back again piece, it's taking a look at a year in review and then comparing your forecast to your actual. So we're going to talk a little bit about forecasting this morning. And analyze your growth, loss, return on your money, and your time invested. So money is certainly one investment that is always a little scarce, but the other thing that's very scarce for most of us is time. So how much time am I putting in to go after a certain market? How much time is being absorbed once I actually get that new customer? So how am I looking at my return on time invested? And when you're taking a look at what worked and maybe what didn't or what needs to be tweaked, what would you do again? Or what would you change? So we're going to start, when we start looking at influences on our business, we want to start very broadly and then get right down to that target. So looking at influences, setting a target, and then narrowing down to achieve that target. So from a broad overview, what influences positively or negatively exist on a global basis? So we've got some global issues happening out there that you don't have any control over. Some of them may impact you positively, again, others negatively. So what's happening in Canada? So Canada-wide, are there some influences or changes right down to a new government? I mean, how does that impact your business? What's happening within the province? So are there some opportunities, some changes, some new businesses, what's happening in there. Taking a look specifically at your region. So within your region, what's happening as far as product development and marketing, as far as new product, as far as your town or destination. Do you have new opportunities for tourism based on new infrastructure, based on new operators opening up and offering something unique to your customers? Perhaps you've got some new competition, so that's also a consideration. So we start looking at influences. One of the big ones right now on tourism is the price of gas. So how does that impact your market? Is that a positive thing? Are more people now going to drive? What does that look like for your business? The other big one, which I think is having a very positive impact on tourism in Canada in general, is we start looking at the fluctuating exchange rates. So right now, the doors have opened back, have opened full and opened wide for the American traveler to come back into Canada. Canada is a great value right now for that market. But we've got two things happening in there. The U.S. is not a great place for Canadians to travel. So often what we see when we have these fluctuating exchange rates, more Americans coming in and more Canadians staying home, traveling within the province or traveling within the region. So a couple of great opportunities in there. So we look at that local market. Could be provincial or it could be Atlantic Canada or even further into Canada. So we start taking a look at, those travelers will stay in Canada or possibly stay in Canada this summer based on the high exchange rate, and gas prices are low. So this makes for some great opportunities for some short haul or reasonably short haul drive market consumers coming into the region. So the next is when we want to start really taking a look at what's happening in your region. Will there be anything new that's going to impact you? Are there some festivals or events that have gained momentum? What else is happening in there? Are there opportunities in neighboring regions to partner and leverage the fact that they're doing something different and they have a boost in tourism, and that traveler is going to not just go to that region, but travel beyond? So we want to take a look at what's happening in that regard. Other big things that you may or may not, or probably more may not, have influence over, but it impacts you, is shift in transportation. So when we start looking at planning, what about airlift into the destination? Is there an increase or decrease into airlift? What about the cost of transportation? You've got ferries to consider. When new highways or new routes open up, it opens up a big avenue for tourism. So really taking a look at what shifts in transportation. And some of this could be, negative impacts as well. Is there a big construction project planned for your region? How is that going to impact you in the short term? So what are the things happening around me that directly impact my business that I may or may not have influence or control over? And then from a national perspective, when we start taking a look at what is Canada doing to market itself in a destination, and what opportunities might exist for me as an operator within the Canadian tourism industry to leverage, to ride on that, to be part of a program. I may end up taking a look at some of the stats put out by Destination Canada and see some emerging markets that my product and offering fits into. So we want to start looking very much from a national perspective. Is there anything happening out there? One of the programs a few years back was the Canadian Signature Experience Collection. So some of the operators within Newfoundland and Labrador jumped on that and had a chance to get their product marketed in partnership with, at that point, the Canadian Tourism Commission, now Destination Canada, and got an opportunity to attract new visitors that they may not have been able to do without this program. So what's happening out there from a national perspective overall? And what about the research that they've done? So we start looking at getting some market intelligence. It's so fantastic because it's all there for you. right from a broad national level into a provincial level, into your region and working with the DMO. So taking advantage of the research, taking a look at how that what's happening out there and how that could impact me. I just took a little clip off the Destination Canada site. The research is very current. So this tourism snapshot, available to you, the URL is there. Please go on and take a look around if you have not. And so you'll get information on who's coming in the country, and that is as current as August of 2015. We'll start looking from a provincial perspective. One of the things I have found working in Newfoundland and Labrador, working with operators in packaging workshops and other programs, is there's so much available out there, and a lot of it is at a very low cost or free. And the operators, not all of them are aware of what's available to them. So taking a look from a provincial perspective, a fantastic resource, and this lists all the different opportunities for you. It has incredible research available, and really getting a chance, have I taken advantage of the free and low-cost opportunities that could impact my business before I start looking at, putting actual dollars in and increasing my sales and marketing budget. So provincial perspective, and then certainly working with your DMO, who are your voice on the ground and can help you specifically, coach you, give you advice, help you as you're trying to develop a new market, attract new customers, decide which show to go to. So they are certainly your partner, as is HNL with programs such as this one. So a little plug in there for Craig and Melissa and the team at HNL. And from a local perspective, are there regional, you have provincial, the DMOs, and you also have regional tourism associations. So what opportunities is there to work together to help bring more tourists into your region? So as we're starting off quite broadly, now narrowing down, some of the things that can happen too is nature and wildlife. Are there shifts in there? Are there some phenomena that's happening that's attracting a new type of animal, or some incredible opportunities for geology or wildlife viewing or nature viewing? So any shifts in there? There may be some that are not as positive. So increasing or decreasing wildlife into a region, again, your control over it is minimal. The impact could be quite significant, so being aware of that. And then taking a look at my businesses around me. Are there new retail or restaurants, new attractions? What about some of the venues? Do they have new exhibits or shows? How can I use this to help market the destination so I get more people into my business? And then really want to get a handle on what the competition is doing. So defining competition is always challenging. Your competition, in your eyes, might be the business next door. It might be a region in the province. So if they don't come to the East Coast, they'll go to the West Coast. It could be another province within Atlantic Canada. Or maybe that visitor is deciding whether they come to Canada or go somewhere else. So what's happening in there? As I mentioned, I've been here working in Northern Ontario, and I remember a few years back I was working with the Newfoundland and Labrador Outfitters Association, speaking at one of the conferences, and this was when the economy had really turned in 2008. And very interesting, we started looking at competition. It was not the outfitter next door. It certainly wasn't the outfitter in the next province. It actually, at that point, was, believe it or not, Africa, because the price of a hunt had come down, a safari had come down so much that it was now within reach for someone that would normally stay in or go to Canada or Newfoundland and Labrador. So very interesting when we start looking at competition. But regardless of who we define them, we want to know what they're doing. Are there new trends? Is there new development or innovation that's happening with my competition? That competition, again, could be somewhere else where I'm viewing latest innovation and trends. It could be an actual physical product or marketing initiative. is there an opportunity for me to take a look at that and say, you know, that I think that would work for my business as well. So as we're now, we've started off quite broadly, and we're narrowing down, we're going down the funnel. And we want input from our customers. So this is before we get into looking at developing that plan. I want to have a really good understanding of what's happening out there in the world and what's happening next door. What are my customers saying to me? How are they viewing my business? What is it they would like maybe a little bit different? How do they find me? If I'm finding a trend of where they're finding me, is it through a referral base? Is it a certain way online they're finding me? Is it through niche opportunities? So I want to get a really good handle on that. So as I start developing my plan, looking at my best customers, where do I find more of them? And when I've defined my best customer, I'll go talk to them, find out as much as you can about them, so you can actually now develop a plan to find more of them. So in these pieces I'm going to have my business demand forecast. So I've taken a look at all the influences and opportunities, and I've taken a look at the research done by the province in partnership with my DMO by Destination Canada, and everyone's saying things are on the rise, and particularly in these segments. So I'm going to take a look at that and roll that, if I can, into my own plan. I'm going to look at marketing and promotional opportunities available out there, and certainly the ones that are very low cost to entry is free. I'm going to take a look at those first and see which ones I'm actually taking advantage of. And are there some that I'm missing that would be a good opportunity? And I'm now going to plug them into a plan. I'm going to look for new market opportunities based on the research that I've done, based on the fact that I may have taken a long-term view and realizing there's a certain market I have that may be declining. I worked in Victoria, BC for a number of years, and we had this interesting phenomena there. It came in, started coming in January. So these were seniors, older seniors from the prairies, and they would come spend the winter in Victoria, which was great. So all the hotels were full, and it actually went on the rise a little bit as there were some health insurance issues. That the appeal to go south wasn't as great, so we did very well. But that market, there was no one to replace them. That next generation wasn't interested in that. So that market literally died off for us. They just slowly started aging and disappearing, and that's now a very, very small market, certainly not what it was. So as I'm looking at my own customer base, are there any warning signs that I need to take a notice of or pay attention to, and then start looking at some new market opportunities to replace that? I want to take a look at regional tourism development and product development. Product development in Newfoundland and Labrador is a hot topic, and there's lots of great things happening. What am I doing with that, and how am I involved? And then taking a look, as we mentioned, the economy and global impact, and then anything else that I feel could have an impact on my business positively or negatively. So now I'm going to start putting these pieces into a cohesive plan. I went online to actually look for this specific quote, and I was quite delighted to see that there was actually a puffin in the picture, which I didn't plan on. So if you don't know where you're going, you might end up someplace else by Yogi Berra, which is true. And if you don't actually know where you're going, you may or may not have got to the destination. So having a plan is certainly going to help you as far as achieving defined goals that you've got for yourself. So we start looking at planning. So I want to take a look at what's happened in my business, and I'm going to suggest at least 1 year in review. So a lot of times when we look at our business, and I'm an entrepreneur and a small business owner as well, we certainly are looking at overall revenue for the year and likely overall expenses that we should be, and then figuring out, okay, I've got this X amount of profit left, which is great. It's great to know that. It's great to set goals around that. But we need to dig deeper in order to really achieve those goals. So I want to get a sense of who my customers really were in the past year. So what we're going after is looking at a historical sales mix. So I want to take a look that in May, and I've got a hotel example here. It doesn't have to be for hotels only. Any type of business this can work for. You're going to define your customers a little bit different. So I'll give you a few examples of that, but in this particular one, so we're taking a look at May. I sold 10 rack rate at X, and the rack rate was $135. I may have had a couple of different discounted rates, particularly if you are practicing revenue or yield management. I may have had some corporate travel in there, some seniors. Now I may have packages. I want to break my customer down as much as I can. So as we're moving forward, you may want to start recording information about your customers as you sell a room, a ticket, an entrance fee, a meal, whatever that happens to be. You might want to get a little more information, and so you really understand who your customers are. So the different types of, so as we start looking at the customers, how am I going to define them? If you're working with tour and travel, you may want to, so working with a tour company, you might now have it all lumped together under leisure travelers, but you may want to break that out, knowing how much specifically came from a tour company. So once we have this broken out, I'm going to get a good view of which kind of customer at which time of year. I'm going to have a sense of how much they're paying at different times of the year. So as I'm starting to move forward, I've got a really good opportunity to plan a little bit differently. And as I'm looking at this, I may have some aha moments saying, boy, I think I might have too many customers in this segment. Do I have too many eggs in one basket? We're going to do the same thing as we start looking at our current advertising free and paid. I want to, by month, have a really good idea, or certainly annually to start. Where did I spend my money last year? How much did I spend on online advertising, or maybe just maintaining my website? And maybe I didn't spend anything online. Okay, great, good to know. And as we look forward, maybe that's an opportunity category. So I want to take a look at what do you currently purchase? How effective is the program that you're buying? So we want to start looking, can I clearly link my investment that I made in a certain program, in a certain ad, in a certain sales activity, in a certain trade show? Can I now link that back to the actual customer that came into my business? If we can't do that, it makes it very difficult down the line as we start looking at how am I going to spend my money. Social media. Lots of talk about social media. I know H&L delivers some great programs as far as helping operators in the province understand different types of social media available. Social media may not cost you anything dollar-wise, so you certainly can put money into it. It's a lot of time. So when I'm looking at the different opportunities out there, which ones am I taking advantage of, and how much time am I spending on that, and what kind of return am I getting? There might be other social media that you've heard about that you're not using. And now when I go back and take a look, so maybe looking, I'll use Instagram here for an example. When I look at my customer base, it doesn't really fall into the demographics of Instagram, so that may not be the best avenue for me. If I'm doing a fair bit of corporate travelers, so I've got business travelers coming in, maybe taking a look at how much time I'm spending on LinkedIn is a better approach. So I now want to link that social media activity back to my customer base. So from here, now I've got a pretty good idea of where I am, so what's happening already historically in my business. Because it's happened in the past doesn't mean it will continue, but it gives me a good sense. If I have more than 1 year historical, I've got a chance to monitor some trends. On that historical data, I'm now going to layer. I'm going to layer the reality of opportunities with exchange rate. I'm going to layer the opportunity. I'm going to layer the fact that new competition may take some of that business away. So everything that I've got layers on top, and I get a sense of where I am. And from here, I now start looking more at where I want to go. So I've got a pretty good sense of where I am, and now I have this idea, and I've got a vision, and I'm going to put a strategy around that, and the components together will give me the success that I'm looking for. The big challenge, I know, for so many operators, and certainly some that I see on the list here, is not only are you the Director of Sales and Marketing, you may be the Director of Sales and Marketing combined with the General Manager. You may actually, for the smaller businesses, take on the role of Chief Engineer and Chief Purchaser and everything else involved. So trying to manage the time effectively is so important. So if you can only do a few things, even though there's so many opportunities, what would be those great nuggets to give you a better return? And looking at that investment of not just money, but time to give you the value and the return. So as we start looking at planning in the future, we need a calendar, and we need to somehow plot this calendar into a usable format. So something as simple as Excel will certainly work. And now I'm going to, similarly to what I did earlier, viewing my historical information, I'm now going to plot my existing customers into this sales mix, which becomes my budget. And so here we talked tour and travel, corporate, family, seniors. If I have, if I've got an attraction or I've got an activity, maybe I want to break it down by time of day. So I'm doing really well, and this came up in one of the earlier webinars, doing really well selling a certain sailing. Midday, everything's great. So now I may want to break down my goals and my sales mix going, okay, I'm going to break it down by the morning sailing, the midday, and the evening. I'm going to use this plan based on how my particular business flows. It could be that I'm looking at selling group meals. Great. You know, and maybe I'm doing really well selling group meals on weekends. How am I going to now do that midweek? So I'm going to really take a look at where am I now, who are my customers, and where do I want to grow? So we get back in, that same historical page now ends up becoming our guide. So I'm going to break this down for every single month, and I'm going to plug in my forecast. So the first one we looked at, the same form. The first one was look backwards. It was a historical view. Now we're looking forward. Now it's a forecast. So based on what happened in the past, based on what I know, what can I anticipate? And I now start plugging in some numbers. I plug in some pricing based on what is my target pricing. And from here, at the end of it, I will have a budget for a forecast for the year, a revenue forecast. And I will also have a target of who I'm going after. And then now I'm going to look at each one of these goals. So I'm going to take a look at, I want to grow my off-season seniors market. Great. So what are things that I can do to reach them? You know, so some of these, there's different activities. Social media, you know, that may work for a segment of the seniors market, but I want to consider that a segment still likes traditional marketing. So maybe it's some direct mail or some print advertising still exists for that market. I may look at certain trade shows. So maybe there's a trade show that my DMO has recommended that really targets that seniors market. I may look at working with my DMO to find out which companies specialize in bringing senior groups. So maybe there's an opportunity there for me. So with each segment, I'm now going to write my plan, and I'm going to define my segment. So my segment is seniors, my segment is corporate, my segment is tour and travel, and I'm going to list all the activities that I believe will work for that market, and I'm going to get advice from some experts to help me with this. And so now I start developing the overall plan. And when I start developing my overall plan, I have a strong market overview. So this was the first information that we did. So taking it global, national, provincial, regional, then my specific destination and product. So have a sense of what's happening there. I've considered transportation. I've considered in the transportation airlift, increase ferry, decrease, whatever it is that is important for people to get to my business. And then I have this overview by market segment. So I've looked at each market segment and I have my actions listed in there. I may need to tweak it as I start putting it into a plan, but overall, this is what I'd like to do. And I want to prioritize that. So if I can't do it all, what would be absolutely must-have that I need to do? What would be great if I have time? And what would be, if I have lots of extra time, I would put this piece in. So give me a sense. The one reason that many plans fail is because the optimism and enthusiasm is actually so strong when doing the plan that a little bit of reality is removed because we haven't considered, can we actually do this based on the time that we have. So we've got an overview by market segment, and we have our forecast and rate and revenue combined with this overview. And now I'm going to take the information that I plunked into my plan by segment, and I'm going to break it down month to month. So I'm going to look at the seniors market and what activity needs to take place at certain times. So part of it will be the actual activities. So it could be that I'm going to attend the Travel and Leisure Show in the city. So I'm going to put that down, and that takes place in September. But I need to start prepping for that show by June or July. And if I know I'm extremely busy at that time of year, I may want to move that back even further. So am I going to have any giveaways? Am I going to do any pitch? What am I going to have available? So now this plan guides me. So I'm not caught by surprise or not prepared for an activity. So it's going to be, I'm going to have some ongoing activity more than likely. So it could be that I decide that I'm going to leverage social media, and I'm going to put in a plan that I'm going to do a post every week on a particular social media site. So that is ongoing. Then there'll be other activity that will only take place at a certain time. Once I put this activity month by month, I need to be brutally honest with myself and say, is this realistic? Can I actually feasibly carry this out? I may then cut pieces away of the plan, and from there I can then start working on my budget. So I'm going to work on this expense budget. I'm going to take a look at this is how much it's going to cost me. I want to be as detailed as I can. And now I'm going to look at the overall picture. So now I have my historical information, my current market information, which has guided my forecast. From my forecast, I've been able to plan activity on a monthly basis, and now I've got some expenses associated with that. So does this all work? Does this all align? Am I a little over budget? Maybe I'm fortunate enough to say, you know what, I think I could actually put a little more into this area. And so now I refine and tweak my approach in order to get the best results. And then at the end, a year from now, you will know how well you did when you sit down and do your review. So at that point, you're going to take your forecast and I'll put a line underneath that. So you're going to go forecast to actual for number of people and how much they spent. And this will then guide you for the future. You'll have a real sense of, how accurate you were. Maybe some other opportunities came up, and they will. And you leverage that opportunity. So being aware of that. We want to make some good, clear notes. Because if we don't, we're not sure why a certain year was so successful. So there might have been a particular event in town that drove business, but it was a one-off. It was an anomaly. It's not a trend. It was a specific, perhaps it was a very, very large convention in St. John's in the off-season or shoulder season that was a multi-night event. And so it really drove business into the regions. If that event is not coming back in the future, we can't count on that. But what I may want to do if I rely on St. John conventions when I'm doing my planning is take a check to see what's coming in next year. So we have this review and assessment to take a look at what went well, where were we very accurate, where did we not get the results, and why? What happened? Was there something unexpected that happened? Was there tough competition? Did others start undercutting you in rate? What went on for you not to achieve that target? So want to make sure that we document that. Oops. So very simple little excerpt from a month. So I'm going to research tour operators. So I'm going to have some short-term goals and long-term goals. If I'm looking at getting into the tour and travel market, I may not realize anything for at least 16 months, probably longer, but I'm going to start with that. And I'm going to work with my DMO in the Department of Tourism to figure out who might be a good fit for me. I'm going to start looking at my package offering for the coming year. So I want to do this. Some of this activity I can do during the slower times. Once you're at peak season, it gets very difficult to execute some of these. So I want to make sure that my activity is loaded more when I've got time. I'm going to update my Facebook page, and I'm going to post. I'm going to visit the local information centers to keep them apprised of what's happening. I may end up doing an e-blast for them. I'm going to text them. I'm going to come up with a communication plan. You've got some things that you don't want to miss at any time. So it's an annual event like completing the federal government rate directory if you get that business. Want to make sure it's plugged in the plan. If for some reason that form didn't get to you, you can be proactive. I may want to look at some of the free things that I mentioned. So it could involve booking an open mic session at the department, looking at newsletter development, and then I know I'm going to attend a certain event, a chamber event, on a specific date. So this is how we start looking at the plan and then figuring out who's going to do it. And if the plan's too full, it gets discouraging when we don't achieve our goals. So I want to taper it back and make it maybe a little more realistic. In here, very simple, start plugging in the numbers I have that I know already into a budget. So I'm going to attend a specific trade show. I know it's going to cost me so much for travel to get somewhere. I have my brochure costs, things that I know happen each year. And once I've got the base in there, I can start looking at the new activity and adding that as well. So we took the boat around the bay, so to say. So where we went in this short while, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. We took a look at how to get from here to there and back again. So starting off, your starting point. Where are you now? What's happening at your place of business? What's working? What's happening in the world right at this moment? So your starting point in the world, the province, and your locale. Then it's kind of where do we want to head? So we're going to go from here to there, and as we're heading there, I need to know where there is. I need to have a goal or a destination. And that goal could be overall revenue. It can be revenue by a particular customer type. My goal might be maintaining business based on what's happening in the economy. what is my clear goal? So I want to have that defined, and I want to know then how I'm going to get there. So what's the route or direction I'm going to take? So that is your plan. What is my plan in order to get me to the destination? And then when it's all said and done, let's go back and take a look and see what worked, where there were some great successes, how we can leverage that for the future, and our overall path and journey, how did our reality and forecast come together. So that's a very quick overview of sales action planning, template and adjust it for your business and fill in the numbers. So I will send that to Melissa, who will get that out.
If you're wondering what your next steps might be following this presentation, there are many options available to you. Simply by contacting Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador, we would be happy to help you determine your next steps, whether it be one-on-one mentoring, further webinars and training opportunities, advanced mentoring sessions, or introducing you to other training providers who offer programming relevant to your business. Be sure to stay tuned to your email, social media, and hnl.ca for future training opportunities. Again, thank you to our partners for their collaboration and support on this initiative: the Department of Business, Tourism, Culture, and Rural Development, the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, and the Regional Destination Management Organizations, who have been great supporters and proud partners with us on this. Thank you, everyone, for joining today, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thanks again.